Conceive, believe, achieve.
This is former UFC middleweight champion of the world, Michael Bisping.
Paddy the Baddy here. You're listening to Combat Sports UK.
And you're watching Combat Sports UK.
Hello, my name is Ben Thomas, and you're watching Combat Sports UK. Today, I'm joined by none other than one of the UK's biggest prospects. It's none other than Cage Warriors Bantamweight star, Nathan Fletcher. Nathan, thank you very much for joining me today. Before we get started, I must ask you the most important question of the day. How are you doing? How is life treating you at the moment?
That's very kind of you to ask, mate. Thank you very much. I'm doing very well on this fine Friday afternoon. I'm actually getting ready to go. I'm going for a little break this weekend. I'm going to the Lake District with one of my mates, Sean. Who actually works for you guys at Combat Sports. So shout out to Sean.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have a little chill weekend up there, do some walking, get out in the nature, maybe have a little cold dip in the Ullswater Lake as well. So I'm in good spirits. I'm chilling, and I'm looking forward to a nice, relaxing weekend.
Yeah, shout out to Sean. I knew you were going to say that. Shout out to Sean, co-founder, great editor. So shout out to Sean.
Big up, Sean.
That's brilliant to hear. I'm glad you've had a lovely end to the year, obviously, with your fight on New Year's Eve. Let's get straight into it. You're finally back into the win column after three hard-fought rounds against Alessandro Giordano. After 15 months away from competition, how good did it feel to finally be back in the cage and having your hand raised?
Yeah, that moment was everything that I imagined it would be. When the announcer read out my name, the winner in the blue corner, Nathan Fletcher, it was everything that I envisioned for the last 15 months. Coming away from that now, it's a little bit, it's interesting because I wasn't sure how I was going to feel after this fight, getting back to the win column. After having so long out, my kind of approach to MMA and my approach to the game has changed a little bit. I think that fighting for me now is a little bit different than what it was for me a couple of years ago when I was on my first run towards the title. I think I'm a lot more mature now, a lot more level-headed. And I used to come away from wins thinking I was the man, thinking that I could take on anybody in the world, and maybe bought into my own hype a little bit. When I come away from this win, not much had changed. Do you know what I mean? I was ready to get back to the gym. I was ready to get back to working on the areas that I feel like I need to improve in. And yeah, like I said, I'm just a lot more level-headed around the whole situation with fighting now. So in terms of my mindset, I've come away with not much of a change in how I was in the lead up to that fight. I just feel like I'm excited to continue to get better, and I'm looking forward to some big fights this year. I'm confident I'm going to go and have a really big 2023, but ultimately I'm just sticking with that beginner's learning mindset, and I'm excited to continue to improve as a mixed martial artist this year.
Obviously, you would have 15 months out of the sport, and you were coming off the back of a loss to Dominic Woodin, one of the Bantamweight elite in Cage Warriors. Were there any nerves heading into the bout after 15 months away from the sport?
I mean, throughout those 15 months, you're constantly having battles in your own head. Do you know what I mean? I try and one of my favorite quotes is about winning the battle in your mind every single day, because that's a challenge in itself. And I think it genuinely is. It sounds cliche, but it's you against you every time when you're stepping in there. And every day when you're going in the gym and training, you've got to overcome, your own sort of mental blocks and convince yourself that you are capable of doing this and you are, capable of becoming one of the best fighters in the world. And so yeah, there was probably some nerves. When I'm in the back, I'm big on positive self-talk. So I do a lot of like shouting out, I'm the man, saying I'm ready for this. This is what you want. You've prepared hard. So when I actually stepped into the cage, I felt pretty calm and composed, which was interesting because I wasn't sure how I was going to feel after having so long out. But yeah, there's definitely, throughout the whole 15 months, there was nerves and I was constantly having that battle in my own mind, but I think I overcome it pretty well. And I've got like a nice strategy in place for fight day, how I approached the build up, the warm up and everything like that, to where I got in the cage, in the zone, mentally ready to perform.
I mean, let's not talk about the bout itself. I assume you would have watched it back by now, or I assume you would have. But what's
about
your
100 times?
Yeah, love that.
Yeah.
What's your initial thoughts on your performance and also your opponent's performance? Because coming in, everyone knew he was a tough brawler. You knew he was going to bring the fight. What was your initial thoughts on your performance and his as well?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I performed that well, to be honest. I think I'm capable of putting him away, and I think I should have finished him. Not taking anything away from his skill set, but I just think I'm a much better fighter than him. And I think that was shown in the fact that I didn't perform to the best of my abilities, and I was still able to get a convincing unanimous decision win against him. So yeah, I think that I'm happy with it, to be honest, because all the circumstances surrounding the fight having the big layoff, having to overcome some of the obstacles that I did that year. Like, there's so many things that people don't know. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to bring to light and say this and that and whatever. Not injuries, little things that I never put out there that I had to overcome. So I know that getting into the cage, I was only a shell of myself anyway. So to perform the way I did, ultimately, I'm happy and I'm proud of myself for getting that victory. But I know I'm capable of a lot better of a performance than what I put on. And in terms of his performance, I mean, quite a lot of people are saying he performed well. I think that's because people hold me in such high regard. And the fact that I wasn't able to finish him, he's kind of getting a bit of credit. But if you actually watch the fight, apart from that guillotine, which I given me neck in the third round, stupid, I was being lazy and made a stupid mistake, he didn't actually do much, to be honest. I don't have a mark on me. I come out with a little tiny bruise over me right eye. Other than that, I wasn't marked up. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't exactly a close competitive fight, I don't think. And afterwards, he said to me that I broke his tooth, and he had like a nice shiner as well from one of my right hands that landed, or one or two of my right hands that landed. So yeah, I don't think I performed to the best of my ability, but I don't particularly think he had a great performance either, to be honest. So it's interesting to see though how people are making it out and saying, that he performed pretty well. But yeah, that's my take on the fight.
I mean, heading into fight night, it was kind of seen as a grappler versus a striking sort of matchup. However, in my opinion, it was kind of clear to see that you had the advantage in both categories. You landed some very good shots. I know he came out firing straight away. I think he tried throwing some flying knee, and he always was looking for it. But I think in the first few rounds, you had the clear advantage in the striking. Was that something you expected before the cage doors were locked?
Yeah, definitely. I said that in my interviews leading up to the fight. I knew I was better than him in every area of the fight. I would have liked to have showcased me striking a little bit more in that one, but I kind of fell back to old habits and got that. I knew that it was a path of least resistance to get the takedown on him and secure the rounds from those positions. But I think the first round I won clearly due to the number of right hands that I landed. I landed a good 3 or 4 clean right hands on his chin. So yeah, I was expecting to have the striking advantage, and a big part of that is the 15 months that I've had out the cage. People expect me to be this grappler because that was the skill set that I excelled in my first 6 fights when I was finishing everyone with submissions. But 15 months is a long time. And in those 15 months out, I put a lot of hours into my boxing, into my striking. So I knew in my head I was confident going in, but it's good to showcase those skills in an actual fight in competition and not just in the gym. So I was happy with how my striking looked in that fight as well.
And you just mentioned there, with just 1 minute and 30 seconds left of the bout, you were left in quite a tight guillotine from what it looked like. It was quite tight. And you're forced to bend, you rolled onto your back and you managed to pop your head out. Just how tight was that guillotine? And after 15 months out, there was never a doubt of tapping, was there? I mean,
there was no doubt. That was tight. I'll be honest. That was extremely tight. Like, it was one of them where, as he wrapped it, I was being lazy, and then I kind of thought, I never really get tapped with guillotines in the gym or front headlocks. I'm really good at defending those type of attacks, and I was a bit complacent. And I thought, what's going to happen here is he's going to burn his arms out trying to choke me. It's not going to go on. I'm going to pop my head out and drop a big elbow on him and carry on ground and pounding him and steal the round or maybe get a finish. And then slowly it just started getting tighter and tighter until I was like, shit, this is going on now. So I had to bail out and go to my back and start trying to hip escape. But he had like a body triangle locked on me. It wasn't like a traditional closed guard with a guillotine. He had like a body triangle. So I was starting trying to hip out. Nothing's really happening. I'm not creating much space. And the choke was going on. A funny thing is, I'd watched Volkanovski versus Brian Ortega that morning because I like to watch fights of the day of the fight just to put me in that sort of mindset. And in that, Volkanovski gets caught in a nice tight guillotine as well. And I think he shows like his championship mentality through fighting out of it. So I was literally in that choke thinking about Volkanovski getting out of his guillotine and thinking, come on, you can't tap here, you've got to fight your way out. And then somehow I popped my head out and then ended up winning the fight from there. So I was happy that I was able to showcase a bit of heart as well and a bit of toughness through that. It kind of like encapsulates the whole 15 months out, the adversities I had to overcome. And then when I'm cruising to a victory right before the final bell, I get caught in a choke that tight. I had to really fight through and dig deep. So that kind of is like a metaphor for the whole 15-month period that I've had to overcome there to get back in the win column. So yeah, I'm happy with it. I'm happy with that. I was able to show that toughness as well.
I mean, you just briefly mentioned Ortega with Volkanovski, how you watched it. Is that one of the main fights you watch ahead of fights? Do you watch many other fights before yours?
Yeah, definitely. I've got like a handful of fights that I like to watch and certain fighters. Recently, I've been watching a lot of Volkanovski, obviously, because he's on an absolute tear. He's the pound for pound number one at the minute. So I like watching a lot of him, a lot of Kamaru Usman. Um, Obviously, a lot of Khabib, like a lot of the top guys, but then the guys like Brad Riddell, guys like Justin Gaethje that get into wars and have really exciting fights. I like that, Ilia Topuria is another one. Quite like his style's quite exciting. So
A
yeah,
bit of Paddy the
aside
Baddy.
from Paddy, of course, Paddy, I always watch my
Yeah.
teammates' fights as well. So Paddy, Adam Cullen, Luke Riley, I always watch their fights as well. Fight day. So yeah, just literally sit in my hotel room because there's not much else to do. I just put the fight pass on and just go through, watch my previous fights as well. So yeah.
Looking back at your performance, do you think that loss now and the one you were coming off against Dominic Wooden and the 15 months off was kind of a blessing in disguise? Looking back,
Yeah.
was it the perfect time for you to go back to the drawing board and sharpen your skills?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've been saying that for the last 15 months, but ultimately, until you step back in the cage and get that victory and wash off the sort of feel of defeat, that doesn't really matter. Do you know what I mean? So I'm glad that I can finally showcase that it was a blessing in disguise and show the improvements that I've made over those 15 months. But I've always preached mental toughness, and I think that even on my run up to the title, I had it was pretty smooth sailing. Do you know what I mean? I didn't really have to overcome any adversity. I was having fight after fight after fight, injury free, getting finishes, building up my height, building up my sort of profile as a fighter and as a prospect. And then like all the adversity comes at once, from the first loss to then getting injured to then having pullouts after pullout after pullout, and all of the types of things I had to overcome over the last 15 months. Looking back now, I'm very happy that that's all been a part of my journey, and the amount of growth that's happened in that time. I now welcome all adversity. I think anything else that you can throw at me, bring it on, because it's only going to make me even more prepared and even more bomb-proof for the career that I'm going to go on and that I'm destined to have.
So we've spoken a bit about the past. We just briefly mentioned the present. Let's now talk about the future. What is next for you? Are you looking to get straight back into the cage? I know Cage Warriors has a bit of a gap now between shows. Are you looking to get just as many bouts under your belt in 2023? What's next for you?
Yeah, I definitely want to have an active year, because last year I was only able to fight once, obviously on the last day of the year as well. So having quite a lot of time out, I want to pick up the activity this year. I'm still young, just turned 25, so I feel like I'm coming into my prime. I mean, I've still got ages to go before I even reach the sort of peak of where I'm going to be at in my career. But I think it's exciting times. I think now I've got that win under me, I'm back on the run towards the title. There's a few new exciting names, because when I was rising up, I was kind of like the only young hot prospect in Cage Warriors, and then I was taking out the likes of Booland, and obviously I fought Martin Yoni, but at the time he wasn't the name that he is now. And then I suppose Wooden was there as well. But I feel like now the division's full of like young up and comers, you know what I mean, that have kind of rose up in the time I've had off. So that's exciting to me, because I'm looking at a bunch of other guys that I want to compete against and prove that I'm that level above, and prove why I should be the one to go on to the UFC instead of all of them. So this year is going to be a big year, and there's going to be a lot of activity.
I mean, that kind of brings me perfectly onto my next question anyway. Who would you looking to be fighting next then? Because there are so many intriguing matchups at Cage Warriors Bantamweight. Obviously, you have the chance of the rematch with Martin Yoni, the current Bantamweight champ. So there's a big rematch there already. You already have a win over him. But you also have the likes of Reese McEwen coming through, Kalen Lochran coming through the ranks. What is the next fight for you? Because there's so many intriguing matchups at Bantamweight.
You've said them all there. Those are the three guys that I want to fight the most. Do you know what I mean? Martin Yoni, because he's got the belt. Reese, because he's on a bit of a win streak and he's taken out some decent guys. And Kalen, because he's got a lot of hype around him. And I've already got a win over him as well in the amateur days. But yeah, those are three names that I want to fight this year. That'd be a perfect 2023 for me. There's also... It's a tough one, because I had the opportunity to fight him, and then he pulled out, and I don't know where he's at, but I wouldn't mind getting that Cameron Else fight back, to be honest, because he's a UFC vet, and that was meant to happen in November of 2022, and I was really excited to take out a big name like him. So we'll see what Cage Warriors want to do. If that's an option, I'd definitely jump at that, because he's got the UFC behind him, do you know what I mean, and being a UFC veteran. But other than him, it's Reese, Kalen, and Martin Yoni, and I don't really care what order that's in. I'd like to fight all three of those guys this year.
Do you have any specific cards you're targeting?
Yeah, and for me, I'm looking at Manchester in April or Dublin. I think I'd prefer the Manchester card, just because it's close to home, and I haven't fought close to home in well, since before COVID now. The last time I fought in Manchester was the start of 2020. And even there, I'd done like over 100 tickets. I had a lot of people come down and support me. And I think I've progressed a lot in my career since then. So the turnout I'd get the next time would be unbelievable. So that excites me. But then if not Manchester, that Dublin card seems pretty intriguing as well. So one of those two. April as well seems like a nice date for me because it gives me enough time to get back in shape. Well, I'm already in shape, but get prepared for another fight after just fighting, obviously, on New Year's Eve.
And one of those names from the previous question reached out to you publicly on social media after the fight. It was none other than Ireland's Caelan Loughran. He tweeted, "Congratulations on the win, wee man, but I thought you got better since your last fight." What were you thinking when you first read that? And where exactly does this beef between you two stem from? Is it just the fact that you two were so quickly coming up the ranks of bantamweight? Where does that come from?
Yeah, I don't reckon there's any real beef. I reckon he likes me, Caelan, to be honest.
Yeah.
I do. I don't mind him as well. Do you know what I mean? We actually have seen each other quite a few times in person, and it's never been anything like hostile. He always lets on. Do you know what I mean? So it's not, I think that's just a little bit for show and to build up a bit of hype. There's no beef on my end. Maybe I'm living in his head. I actually tweeted back saying, been living in Chip Hazard's head rent-free because he looks the ringer of Chip Hazard from Toy Soldiers. So I tweeted that back to him, and Ray showed him. My tweet did a lot better than his one. But yeah, look, there's no beef on my end. I just want to fight him purely from a competitive standpoint. Do you know what I mean? He's 7-0, 8-0, something like that. He's got a lot of hype behind him. He's coming off a win of Luke Shanks, who's obviously like a formidable opponent. So for me, it's purely competitive. I don't think he's got any beef for me, really. But if he has, we can fight and sort it out. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, any of those names we've just mentioned would be absolutely incredible fights. But it was also announced the other day that you have just signed a multi-fight extension with Cage Warriors. How delighted are you to secure your future with one of the world's best promotions?
Yeah, that's perfect for me. Like, my whole career has been on Cage Warriors. Do you know what I mean? From literally my amateur days. I fought my first 2 amateur fights on like local regional shows. And then from my 3rd amateur fight, literally it's been Cage Warriors Academy as an amateur. And then all my pro fights, 8 pro fights now with Cage Warriors. So I feel like I'm a company man. Do you know what I mean? And they look after me, and I go out and perform well on all the cards they put me on. So we've got a really good relationship, and I'm excited to continue to grow that. But I do believe this will be my last contract with Cage Warriors, because by the time these 5 fights are up, I'll already be in the UFC, definitely.
I love that. That's the attitude. Let's now talk about your gym a bit. You're training at Next Gen in Liverpool. Just how important is that gym to you and all the guys and girls there?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I say this on every single interview, but I think we're one of the best teams in the world. I think we're definitely right at the top of European MMA. If you just look at the sort of caliber of guys we're putting out, we're getting wins across all the big promotions, from Bellator now with Liam McCourt, UFC with Paddy and Molly, and Cage Warriors with the likes of me, Cullen and Luke Riley, like I said, Liam Malloy, Matt Bonner, all guys who are constantly winning on the biggest shows. Do you know what I mean? So I think we've got a recipe for success going at the minute. Do you know what I mean? And it's from everything. It's from the close-knit sort of atmosphere in the gym, how close we all are as a team. The coaching staff's unbelievable. I feel like a lot of gyms are sort of stagnant and living in the past and training a little bit old school, whereas we're constantly like innovating and changing the way we train. And Paul and Ellis are always going, when they go over to Vegas, they're speaking to the likes of the guys at the UFC PI, speaking to other coaches, and sort of like assessing how we're doing it and then tearing it down and starting again. You know what I mean? So we're always like evolving and developing. And I feel like we're kind of at the leading and at the forefront of European MMA at the minute. And long may it continue. We've got a lot of guys coming through, a lot of amateurs who are going to be taking over. And I genuinely believe, like, over the next 5 years, we could have a good 8, 9, 10 fighters in the UFC. So it's exciting times.
You just mentioned the deadly duo of Paddy the Baddy Pimblett and Molly Meatball McCann. Just how inspiring is it for you to be training alongside 2 individuals who are just thriving at the peak of the industry?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And I've been there in the gym since before they were in the UFC. Do you know what I mean? So to see them rise up, to see Molly go from fighting in what's it called now? The Olympia, you know what I mean? Like a small venue in Liverpool on Shinobi. Like, to watch her first fight on there out of the gym, and then now she's fighting in Madison Square Garden. Do you know what I mean? It's been a crazy journey, and I've been there the whole time for that. And then to see Paddy going from selling out the Echo Arena and fighting for Cage Warriors world titles. His last fight on Cage Warriors was when I fought Martin Yoni, so we were on the same show there. We shared that card together. and to see how he's gone on now and just turn into an absolute global megastar. Do you know what I mean? It's very motivating to see, because I know that I'm doing the exact same things as them. Do you know what I mean? Every single day I'm in the gym, same training partners, same drills, you know what I mean? Same sparring rounds. So I see that in my future as well. Do you know what I mean? And it's nice for me to see, because I can see a clear path and I can see the journey they're on. And I know that's where I'm heading as well. So I take a lot of motivation from that.
Obviously, they've been in the sport for quite some time now and they've worked their way through the rankings. But does the likes of Drake buying them a Rolex and them signing a huge deal with Barstool Sports continue to surprise you? Or is that just another day of being a teammate of Molly McCann and Paddy Pimblett?
Yeah, when you say it like that, when you hear it, it is absolute insanity, isn't it? It's crazy, the level of stardom that they're at. Even I can't remember where Paddy was. He went to some, maybe it was the F1 or some races the other month, and Stormzy come up to him and asked Paddy for a picture. Do you know what I mean? So it's just crazy, the level of celebrity that they're both at. Even representing Barstool. Barstool's a massive organisation. I've been watching that on YouTube for years, and then now they're both representing Barstool. It is insane, but at the same time, it's just the normality now. There's cameras in the gym every day. There's always famous people popping down the gym to see them. We had Meeks, the rapper from Manny, coming in the other week. There's been like Ronnie O'Sullivan coming in the gym, Gary Neville, different footballers coming. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's just the norm now in the gym. You get used to it. But when I sit back and think about it, and like I'm talking to you now, it is insane. Like, it's crazy.
I mean, we did just mention it there. You did fight on a Paddy Pimblett card alongside him. How much would it mean for you to be alongside Paddy the Baddy and Meatball Molly on a UFC card one day? Maybe even in Liverpool.
Yeah, well, that would be a dream come true. It was in Liverpool. Could you imagine that? That's the thing, right? I genuinely believe with the amount of talent we've got coming through, you could stack a UFC card with next gen fighters in the next 5 years. I genuinely believe it. We've got like I say, the likes of me, Cullen, Luke Riley, Connor Wilson's there, Matt Bonner, Liam Malloy. These are all guys that I genuinely believe are going to go on to get signed by the UFC someday in the near future. You could put a full card together with us there in Liverpool. That would be unbelievable.
It's certainly one of the most exciting gyms, not just in Europe, but in the world at the moment. I mean, you've just mentioned how many amazing guys you've got coming through. But just a bit about you now. This is a question I love to ask all the fighters I interview. I just find it intriguing. What is one thing that mixed martial arts has taught you as a person?
Okay, I wouldn't say one particular thing, to be honest. I feel like I've learned so much from MMA. Like, when I say it's my life, I genuinely mean that. Like, there's not much else that occupies my mind than fighting, like 24/7. And I feel like I've applied the discipline that I've taken from martial arts and the mindset and how I approach fighting. That's now how I approach everything in my life. So it's kind of just like transform my personality. And it's interesting. The fighters are different. Some fighters are just like, they like to get in there and have a scrap. I'm a little bit more philosophical about it. Do you know what I mean? I genuinely like to embody and embrace that martial arts mindset and the discipline that I get from it. That's probably the biggest thing that I take in that, just accountability, sort of ownership of everything that goes on in my life. That's down to me, and I think I get that through the training of mixed martial arts and understanding like what you get out, what you put in. Do you know what I mean? And that's the sort of approach I'm taking with my whole life now. So I wouldn't be the same man if it wasn't for MMA, and I'm very grateful for the team I've got around me and for the opportunities that I've got and just being able to live out my dream. Do you know what I mean? Not many 25-year-olds can say that they're doing the dream job, and I'm doing that. So I'm very grateful for it.
Where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years' time? I mean, you're only 25. You've got so long in the sport left. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years?
At the top of the sport. I see myself being a UFC world champion. That's been my dream since I was maybe 13 years old. And I sounded crazy at the time saying it to my mates in school, but I've always said, look, I'm going to be in the UFC. I'm going to be a world champion. And I genuinely believe now with every ounce of my being that that's what's destined for me. So by the time I'm 35, I'm retired in 10 years' time, I will be a UFC world champion.
About over that shoulder. But
the double champ, maybe, you never know. That's what everyone's doing nowadays. So
exactly.
You can't just win one belt now, can you? You've got to win two. So maybe I'll go for the featherweight gold as well.
That would look beautiful. And finally, I know you'll have quite a lot of fans tuning into Combat Sports UK listening to you right now. Is there a message you'd like to give them?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to everyone who stuck by me, because this has been a difficult period in my career, the last 15 months of inactivity. And like, MMA is one of those sports where it's like, what have you done for me lately? and I hadn't done a whole lot lately. So a lot of people forget, a lot of people sort of write you off and move on to the next top prospect. But I've got a really good support system from my teammates to my sponsors, from my family. And then where I'm from, Southport's a relatively small town, and I've got a really great support network from there. Like most of Southport get behind me, they all go and watch me fights, or whether it's, you know, if it's close to home, they'll all come down, or if they're in London, I get people going to the local pubs and stuff to get it on there. So yeah, I'm really thankful for the support I've got, and like it spurs me on and motivates me because I want to do everybody proud that supports me. So I'm not just doing it for myself, I'm doing it for all of them as well.
Well, what a brilliant way to conclude the interview. But there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you, and I hope we can catch up for your next bout.
Definitely, Ben. Thank you very much for having me on, mate. I appreciate it.
Lovely. And all of his social media handles will be on the screen below, so please drop him a follow and show him the love he deserves.
That's it. Get following people. Come on. Got to get that Insta game strong. Let's go.
Exactly. Thank you very much for joining me.